Okay. We're on now, so thank you.
We're live.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for waiting a little bit while we worked out our Zoom technical details. Welcome, everybody, to the meeting. Tonight we're going to start with opportunity for privilege of the floor. And so we would like people who wish to speak to the board, if you go to the bottom, click on participants, and then on the right of your screen, there will be a list of participants, and at the bottom, there will be a more button. And if you press the more button, then you can choose to raise your hand. And so if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. And John Frasier is serving as the co-host and bouncer, and will recognize you in the order in which you raise your hand. So,
well, actually, Mark, we have 48 participants on the call, and I can't see all of them at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick whoever I see, and I apologize in advance if it's not quite in that order.
I will, John. I'll tell you what I think I understand about Zoom is the first hand raise to the top of the list.
Oh, okay.
So if you just start at the top and work down, you should get them in the order if you want to do it that way.
I've got a 2-page grid view, so we'll give it a go.
Okay.
All right, so the first person anyway I see is Jonathan Comstock. So I'm going to unmute Jonathan.
Okay.
Or I'm going to attempt to unmute Jonathan. Jonathan, I'm unmuting. Are you on your phone? In addition to, yeah, it's not unmuting. Weird. Okay.
Jonathan, you may need to unmute yourself. You may be given permission by John,
yeah,
but we can't hear you.
Yeah, I think that would be true. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I hope not everybody has as much trouble getting started as I just did. I would like to speak in favor of the moratorium on commercial building for the next 6 months. I think it is entirely reasonable that the overall plan that people have been working on for a couple of years get finished before we start doing any kind of major development of that sort. So I'm strongly in favor of a 6-month moratorium until the plan is finished. And that's all.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Oh, John, I'm not hearing you, John.
That's because I didn't unmute myself.
Okay, great. Looks like
Jan Burton now, Mark.
Okay. Janice Burton?
Hi, neighbors. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name's Jan Burton. I live near Slaterville Springs. I submitted comments to the town council on this topic, and I want to share a portion here with the community. I'm sensitive to my privilege that allows me to refuse to shop at Walmart where the prices are low. And it is a privilege that allows some of us to afford to buy quality, fresh, and local foods that are not produced in factories by international corporations from globally sourced GMO and non-organic ingredients using close to slave labor. I wish it were a branch of the Ithaca Reuse stores proposing to shop in Caroline instead of an importer of cheap plastic products from China. If we protest against a dollar store, are we forcing our financially disadvantaged neighbors in Caroline, Danby, Richford, and Berkshire to have to drive far to get the things they can afford? These are the people who need our food bank, who have to use buses, who cannot afford to insulate or put in green energy heating systems, As the numbers of poor folk escalate nationally due to harmful national policies, are we going to see more people unable to afford quality goods? Does a local discount store decrease the carbon footprint of neighbors who have to shop at discount stores? The new construction possibilities in Caroline exist along a continuum. There were concerns about fracking infrastructure, establishing facilities that entailed heavy equipment and toxic materials, traveling along Highway 79. A local branch of the Ithaca Free Clinic might be a possibility on the opposite end of that continuum. Would a dollar store be in the middle of that continuum? I hope we end up with stringent net zero energy building codes for commercial development. That is what will serve us best into the future for our children. How do we best be a loving and caring community? How do we make fair choices that benefit as many as possible and harm the least? Thank you.
Thanks, Janice.
Thanks. Catherine Goldberg is up next.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can. I didn't unmute you, so that's okay.
Of course, I just unmuted, I guess. So I just wanted to speak to this issue really independent of the moratorium and encourage the board to adopt formula business restrictions at some point soon. I don't know how that's going to work in terms of this application already being in with the review board, which is why I'm really speaking to this separate from the moratorium. I would strongly advocate for formula business restrictions to keep development consistent with the town's rural character and local priorities. I think that this is a way that we can deal with development pressures without necessarily broad-based zoning. That would obviously be another way to deal with this, but there are many, many towns and municipalities that have dealt with the aesthetics, the, other issues that go along with these businesses, and it's not something that we would be reinventing the wheel for. So I would just, again, really want to encourage that in addition to whatever is going to happen with this particular applicant. Thanks, that's all.
Thanks, Catherine.
Alita is up next.
Yes, this is Alita Gaida. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a partner at Couch White, a law firm in Albany, and I am providing comments on behalf of Franklin Land Associates, LLC. We also submitted comments for the board's consideration by email and in the mail. The moratorium here, it appears to be proposed in response to a petition from neighbors opposing a single sizable retail store. Franklin Land Associates is proposing a retail store of less than 10,000 square feet, and it submitted its applications back in February. We oppose this moratorium. It's not necessary in this case. The comprehensive plan process, according to the draft moratorium language itself, has already been going on for 6 years, and there was never need for a moratorium before. The submission of one application does not create the legal grounds to shut down all development in the town, which is what this moratorium would do. And further, since the comprehensive plan process has been occurring for 6 years, there's no guarantee that it would be finished in 6 months. So we could be shutting down development and across the entire town for a much longer period of time. Also, based on established case law, it's illegal to enact a moratorium solely on the basis of unsubstantiated public outcry. The town has an obligation to consider the needs of the community as a whole, not just. The moratorium also does not provide sufficient grounds for its enactment, and it is unreasonable in scope because, as I mentioned, there's no exceptions for any development that would require a site plan. I finally would note that we ask that our comments that were submitted, as well as these comments tonight, be considered by the board and be made part of the public record. And thank you for the opportunity to let us share.
Thank you, Alita.
Mary Alice is next.
How about that? Hi, this is Mary Alice Kobler, and I would like to speak strongly for a moratorium. And I want, the reason our comprehensive plan has been taking a long time is because we're being so very, very careful with our rural community. And 6 months isn't gonna break anybody. And I also want to say that the intersection of Landon and 79 is a particularly bad intersection. They're going very fast, and getting across that intersection is, there's been a number of wrecks that have happened in recent years, and I see that as a real problem area to be turning in and out of. And I really liked Catherine Goldberg Forrest's ideas right there. I'm not familiar with them, but I'm glad she put that out there to the town board. I'd like to review that a little bit more. And a store of 9,300 square feet is not very much different than a 10,000 square foot. So I really can't go along with Alita. Sounds like a really big development, and I want our town board to take that very seriously and listen to the people who, some of us didn't know about this, and I'm glad that we were alerted to it. And I think you're going to get a lot more people being concerned about it. So please put a moratorium in place and let our town deal with this over a time frame. Thank you very much for your concern and your dealing with this.
Thank you, Mary
That's all.
Alice.
Okay, Lisa Evett is next.
Development in the town of Caroline. To give the town time to consider carefully and thoroughly what the implications would be of allowing this large Dollar General store to be built on the corner of Landon Road and Route 79. The proposal for construction of such a store should undergo thorough should be accordance with guidelines spelled out forthcoming comprehensive plan. First off, the town should know whether the store would have a paved parking lot, and if so, how big it would be. This is a big concern since it's well known that parking lots harm the land under and around them. Paved land cannot act as a sponge to absorb, filter, and slowly release rainwater, which is key to the health of the soil. Furthermore, instead of being soaked up, the rain flows off the surface, carrying with it the surrounding lands such as phosphorus, hydrocarbons, heavy metals, and road salt. Another environmentally relevant issue would be the increased road traffic and the pollution that goes with it. I'm fully aware of and sympathetic to the reasons for viewing such a store as an asset to the community, namely that it would provide more affordable merchandise closer to home for many Caroline residents. But I think that there are costs to Caroline residents that should be taken into account. According to the minutes of the last town board meeting, Jonathan Bates has pointed out that the town would reap limited financial benefit from such a store. He cited U.S. Small Business Associates findings that 57 cents of every dollar spent at such a non-locally owned store does not stay in the community. That means that that money is not taxable and thus not available to Caroline to help pay for our needs. I would also be concerned that the products sold at such a store would not only be of inferior quality, they would also be harmful to the health of their purchasers. I have read that many items like toys, utensils, and serveware are made from cheap, inferior grade plastics that are more likely to break while you're using them, and more importantly, may also contain harmful chemicals that could be toxic. If this store were to offer food items, I would be concerned. I've read that recent studies indicate that there are harmful chemicals in poor quality dollar store containers, meaning that they may not be safe for food products. Finally, such a store would be the antithesis of the vibrant, community-centric, locally owned store that is Brookton's Market, whose demise might be spelled by the arrival of a Dollar General store. What a sad day that would be. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Rita Rosenberg is up next.
Rita?
I have to find her to unmute her. Hang on a second.
I have to start the video.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Rita.
How are we? Can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
Great. Good evening, everyone. As the town of Caroline residents are faced with the prospect of a dollar store in our community, we are presented with many questions, challenges, and opportunities. I would like to share some critical information and also state that this situation has opened the door for our community to come together, to have honest and well-informed conversation, to identify what responsible development looks like for the town of Caroline, and what are the growing needs regarding access to goods and services and food justice for all our residents. I am grateful to the town board for giving careful consideration to enacting a 180-day moratorium. I have to say, I never knew there was so much information out there in regard to dollar stores being built throughout this country. Through research, I will share points of interest for those that are listening this evening. Dollar General's business strategy is to build stores within 10 miles of each other with no consideration to whether they make sense for the community. They simply find a willing landowner. There are currently 8 dollar stores within a 10-mile radius of Caroline, north, south, east, and west. They target rural communities that have a percentage of families who are near or fall below the poverty line. Profits for Dollar General go directly back to corporate offices and not to this community. The Caroline Town Board at tonight's business meeting will also be considering recertifying the town as a living wage employer. Dollar General is not going to pay a living wage. There is rightful concern in our community for people who might be inclined to depend on Dollar General for their food, which is far from fresh, local, or have significant nutritional value, and for cheap merchandise that is manufactured out of our country. It is important to recognize that dollar stores worsen inequality by extracting wealth from vulnerable communities, leaving them to fall even further behind. They contribute to a growing disparity between communities that have access to fresh food and healthy local economies and those that do not. So let's hold each other and our leadership accountable for considering the whole picture, determining together what we need in order to have a robust local economy that will benefit everyone in our community and beyond, and not let corporations determine it for us. I look forward to having these conversations through public hearings in the immediate future. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rita.
All right, the next person up is just initials KJJ23.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
My name is Kurt Jerka. I'm a resident of Caroline. I live on North Landon Road, and I'd like to read a statement that was actually prepared by my wife, who's not able to attend this meeting, but I also share these same views. And this is in her words: although I am unable due to a work commitment to attend the 4:15 board meeting and speak during privilege of the floor, I am expressing my support for the local law of the town board, support for the local law the town board is considering on a moratorium on actions subject to site plan or subdivision review for a period of 180 days. I support setting a date for a public meeting. A moratorium, if enacted, will allow the planning board to complete the Town of Caroline Comprehensive Plan an important document and framework for guiding in a logical approach the future of the town of Caroline. The comprehensive plan will provide guidelines for safe and appropriate commercial, agricultural, and residential development in the town of Caroline that considers the safety and well-being of the residents of the town. Time is of the essence, given the apparent interest of a commercial retail business to propose a development to be situated on the south side of Route 79, just east of the intersection with Landon Road. That stretch of Route 79 highway is notorious for drivers speeding above the area's posted 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. Further, the proposed site is on a slope of Route 79 and very near a distinct curve in the road. All of these factors contribute to unsafe conditions in which to have a mix of high-speed traffic while other cars are either slowing on a curve to enter a retail parking lot or emerging from the parking lot with impaired visibility onto high-speed Route 79. The Landon Road 79 intersection is already precarious with visibility hampered in both directions, east and west, when on Landon heading either north or south. Visibility to the west is limited due to the drop in elevation. Visibility is hampered to the east by the curve in the road coupled with the rise in the road. Adding the precariousness of retail traffic to this mix has the potential to endanger the safety and welfare of town of Caroline residents, as well as others traveling that portion of Route 79. The town board would be derelict in its duty not to support the moratorium, which would pause commercial development and allow the planning board to progress on the comprehensive plan. Such a plan would provide guidelines for appropriate siting of businesses and commercial development that integrate safely with the topography, thoroughfares, and characteristics of the town of Caroline lands and roads to protect the safety of its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Thanks, Barbara.
Catherine Baker's cat is up next.
Well, thank you. The cat did jump down. I want to thank you for the opportunity to make these remarks, and I also appreciate some of the very thoughtful comments that have come before. I too have grave concerns about the safety of this proposed piece of development. I live at the corner of Landon Road and 79. Because there is a rise as one is coming from the west to the east, I timed it, and when the area that is proposed for development is visible to a driver that is coming west to east, once you crest that little bit of a hill there, you have only 4.3 seconds if you're going 50 miles an hour to stop, to allow what I presume would be vehicles coming out of that parking lot. It's quite frankly not enough time to even allow a passenger vehicle to stop, never mind one of the large trucks that move up and down 79. Coming from the east, the visibility is somewhat better, but the concerns around vehicles that move far in excess of the 45 miles an hour is posted still stand. It's not unusual at this corner to have at least one accident a year. And this is a corner where the sight lines are somewhat better than the proposed location of this development. I have grave concerns about having more of these accidents. My other two concerns. First, see I'm concerned about the impact of this proposed development on an entity that I see as being a very good neighbor and citizen in this area, and that is the Brookton Market. Although their shopping or their visiting demographic might be somewhat different than people that would tend to shop at the Dollar General, I'm still very concerned about the impact on a little store that offers fresh produce and fresh dairy and lots of local products and local musicians, and is just in general a good neighbor and a good gathering place. I think that that has to be considered in terms of one of the possible impacts of future development. And then lastly, I would just ask, although I don't presume to speak for disadvantaged people, I too enjoy the privilege that was referenced earlier, and I don't presume to speak for disadvantaged people, but to what extent are we going to allow this large corporate entity to come in and prey on people who are limited in their choices by the provision of very inferior, cheap, often imported goods and food that bears no relation to a healthful diet, with no produce, no fresh foods at all that I could determine when I did my research in the several stores in the area. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Catherine.
All right, Michelle of Michelle's iPhone fame is up next.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I have been living in Caroline for 2.5 years now. We bought a home on 79. I'm a little bit farther out of town than where the proposed development is, but I really just wanted to reiterate mostly what has already been said. Christine, go over this one, okay? I really wanted to just reiterate most of what's been said, the local effect on places like Brookton Market that are a part of our community, the low wages that a store like Dollar General is going to pay, and also the lack of access to fresh foods. That, you know, this is a corporation that essentially is coming in to try and say that people in the community who may not have the privilege to choose to not shop at some place like Walmart or some place like Dollar General, that they don't deserve to have access to fresh and whole foods. I've lived all over the country before I chose to buy a home here in Caroline and settle here and become a part of the community. And my time living in Los Angeles, you know, I saw that one of the significant problems in different neighborhoods there is the same kind of lack of availability of fresh foods, and it's corporations, it's fast food coming in, and there aren't grocery stores. There are places like McDonald's, there's places like Burger King. You can go and get fast food, and that's really it. And I really do feel like the dollar store, the way that it seems to me that they operate is the same thing. That there's a dollar store not even a whole 15 minutes from my home in Caroline. Why do I need to have another one 10 minutes away that's not going to have fresh food, that's not going to have access to food that is actually good for all of us? People who do need it do have the access to get to a dollar store. As it was mentioned in another call, there are, I don't remember the number, but there are quite a few that are all less than 10 miles away from our community. And it doesn't seem to me like it makes sense that it should be something that I want to have a dollar store that's 10 minutes in one direction versus the 15 minutes in the other direction that the existing one already is. I think that there's a better way for us as a community to support fresh and local foods and businesses and take into account the traffic. I don't even live in that area, that specific stretch of 79, and I see the way people speed here. I think that you are asking to have quite a few accidents there, and I would hope that our community is going to come together and really put together a better plan for what we want to see for development than to have somebody who is not part of our community come in and build a store because from their perception, this is what we need. I don't think that we need it. I can get to Walmart, I can get to Tops, I can get to Wegmans, I can get to the Dryden Food Mart, I can get to another dollar store, all within between 10 and 20 minutes. And Brookton Market. I don't see how that means we need more. And thank you for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. I get your point.
Next up is Stephen Vukas. Apologies if I didn't get that quite right.
No, you got it pretty good. Thank you. I work with Bowler Engineering. We're civil engineers working on behalf of Franklin Land Associates. And I just wanted to briefly acknowledge the comments. There was some comments made towards traffic and stormwater. And I just wanted to point out that we have submitted our civil site development plans to the New York State Department of Transportation back in February, and they have since approved our access location with the stage 1 approval on March 20th. They take into consideration things that have been talked about on this call, such as the speed of the road, the amount of vehicles that are coming in and out of that our establishment, and the site distance, the speed limit, and so on. And they've determined that it is an acceptable location, and we're proceeding with detailed technical review at this point. So just want to point out that we have looked into traffic, and the DOT has responded and has approved stage 1 for our site. Also, people have mentioned that they're concerned about the stormwater. We've designed our plans in accordance with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to adhere to all the quality and quantity runoff requirements that the state puts into place. We've taken a look at what the water quality volume would be for a one-year storm, and accounted for that with a pre-treatment basin followed by a wetland treatment practice in the rear of the property, as well as extended detention on top of that to make sure that we would not cause any adverse impacts to our neighbors to the south, because that's where the general flow of stormwater goes. So I just wanted to bring those couple points up, acknowledge that we've listened and understand that there's concerns, but we have addressed them with our development plans and are working with state agencies to ensure that we're in compliance with all of that. Thank you, and stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you, Stephen. Is there anyone else? I don't see any blue hands still.
That was our last one.
Okay. Anybody else that wants to address the board? Great. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And with that, I'll move to the first item of business on the agenda, the Highway Superintendent's report. So, Bobby, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
All right. Not a whole lot to report this month. Things have been pretty slow. We've done some emergency work. We had to replace a pipe on Malink Road, which is kind of our last road in town, which actually had two great big holes in the middle of the road. We replaced that, did another one on Baylor Road today. And we have kind of cleaned up the Ecruce Road site. We removed all the blocks that were left, and kind of cleaned up some spoils piles and just kind of tidied it up before, the new project just starts. So contractors come in there, they can actually look at the whole site rather than a big mess. We'll probably have a couple guys a week, and just to keep things up to shape. And that's about it as far as that.
Great. Any questions from the board for Bobby? That sounds good. So you guys you're working a couple guys a day or whatever.
Yeah, I've got them kind of split up into teams. So I have two guys that will come if I need anything. This week I have two guys. If I need anything done next week, I have a different two guys. And basically, at the beginning of the day, they're wiping out their equipment. At the end of the day, they're wiping out their equipment.
Great.
Just trying to stay on top of things and keeping, door handles washed off and We have hand sanitizer in just about every vehicle. So we're trying to do the best to stay safe, but still keeping up on the roads and the maintenance that needs to be done.
Great.
Just a comment. I saw today the governor is requiring masks whenever people can't maintain their 6-foot social distance. I don't know if that's an issue and whether you need masks and whether you need help procuring them.
I personally have enough for the guys. Believe it or not, I do have a couple of N95 masks that we've kind of held on to for this reason. So I have enough for the guys for now. And I have some family members that are actually making masks at this point. So I think as far as right now, we're probably pretty good. But if that comes up, I'll be sure to, ask for some help from you guys to kind of locate some if we need to.
Okay. Yeah, the recommendation for, people who are feeling healthy and whatever is that cotton masks will suffice, putting an extra little barrier in there, whether paper towel or something to help add to the filtering properties. But the recommendation is to wash them daily in hot water and soap. And so, they likely would need a rotating supply of 2 or 3 masks. So they're wearing one is washed and drying, and the next one's available.
So if I may, Bobby, and just in general, I've been working with emergency management services periodically to get us hand sanitizer. And also support the fire departments. And when I visited last time to get another gallon, I asked about masks because of these new orders. And for the fire department and for Bobby, my understanding is if they're in a pickle, they can reach out directly to emergency management and they will try to help. I couldn't pick up any because, for the town offices are not in that umbrella. But I will be sharing with the fire chiefs that if they need them, that's what they're supposed to do, contact them. So I guess that would apply to Bobby if he's in a pickle too.
Okay.
Thanks, Brooke.
I recommend you stay out of the pickles.
Yeah, we're trying. We're doing pretty good at the social distancing part.
That's good. Sounds good. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I'll offer my brief report. Following on that, we're having weekly supervisors Zoom meetings to keep up to date on the COVID-19 pandemic and the pause. And I think everybody knows now that the recommendation is to stay home unless you absolutely have to go out for essential needs. Maintain social distancing at 6 feet at least, and as Irene said, to wear a mask if you're in a public space. And I know a lot of the grocery stores are, they have one-way aisles now, 6-foot markers at the registers, barriers for the checkers, and so anyway, yeah. Eckruth Road, Bobby mentioned, so I'm working with TG Miller still on completing, finalizing a plan for that, and I've been working with the landowners on the final version of an easement agreement so that we can have access to a little bit of their property right at the work site. So that's going well. That'll be finished very soon, and we hope to get that project moving forward this spring. My understanding is that I believe that falls under an essential service. So I actually met today with Brooke and Terry Carroll and Lou Vogel to discuss the NYSERDA stretch energy code for residential new construction. And so I appreciated Brooke being there. They were very interested in getting the perspective from the code officer's view. and trying to understand, looking, critically at how we can make an impact on decreasing energy use and costs for energy for homes. So I thought that was a very productive conversation, and it's clear that Lou and Terry want to keep badgering Brooke or talking with Brooke about his ideas and getting feedback. So appreciate that. We had a couple meetings of, and Irene is on this committee, of the TCOG's emergency services planning subcommittee. It's one of our TCOG subcommittees trying to generate some initiatives that TCOG can undertake to address for our subcommittee the needs of rural communities for emergency first response and fire protection that everybody we know is needs attention. So that's underway. I'm happy with how that's going, and I'm hopeful that some creative ideas. That's my report. And I sent out a report earlier. I think I had a couple other things on there, but I can't remember what they are now, and I don't have it with me. But anybody has questions?
Thank you.
Great. All right. With that, Jesse, do you have anything to report from the clerk's office?
I just wanted to mention that I have turned over the tax payments to budget and finance, so I'm happy to have that done. And that I am maintaining workflow here at home, with the exception of running to the office here and there for scanning or other things that need to be done. But so far it's going pretty well. I'm able to communicate with a lot of people through email, which has been really great. So that's all I've got.
That sounds great. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
Dan Klein, do you have anything to say to us tonight?
Yes, good evening, everybody. I do. I'll run through a few things, and I'll be happy to answer questions if I can. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to the county staff who are handling the emergency response. I mean, most of what is happening in this county is going through at the county level. So I'm couldn't be happier with the quality of the work that they're doing. They're really, I can't say enough about how hard they're working and what a good job they're doing. The county legislature, on the other hand, has been, we've been working, but we're doing bare bones stuff. We are keeping our meetings to a minimum and really just trying to limit it to essential items. So I do have a couple of things to run through. One is that we did pass a resolution recently sent to the state, asking the state to consider having the next few elections be all mail-in ballots. I think the reasons for this are obvious, that it's going to be very hard to stage elections during this current crisis. You know, we can't have public gatherings. Most of the poll workers are elderly and are not going to want to come. We wouldn't want them there as well. We do have to acknowledge, though, that our own Board of Elections has told us that this is a logistical hurdle that is not going to be easy. They couldn't even guarantee that they could run this election smoothly. So we appreciated their honesty, but we did go ahead and ask the state anyway to go ahead and make that change. The power to do that rests at the state, not the local level. So we'll see how that plays out. I think most people are still in crisis mode. Most governments, most businesses are in crisis mode. But sooner rather than later, we're going to have to start thinking about economics and budget. For the county, our first budget meeting is in less than 2 weeks. We're going to have to make projections, and we know that those projections could just be way, way off. But we're getting to a point in the year where we have to do this. There's no other choice. So we'll start making our first projections in 2 weeks, and then the budget process continues on through the rest of the spring, through the summer, and into September. And obviously probably we'll all have a much better idea of what the future looks like at that point. But I just want to let you know that we're actually starting the process, even though it's guesswork.
Okay.
The town supervisors had sent a communication to the county asking for some guidance with highway departments and building processes and what safe and proper procedures are. And we are going to have our county highway superintendent have a meeting with all the town highway superintendents. We're going to get Cornell Roads involved. And I don't really have more information than that. I don't know that the county has a lot more information than the towns do. I think it'll be a worthwhile thing just to have everybody get together and talk and share information. So, I assume Bobby will have a report on that at some future meeting, how that went. Do want to mention the census. The census is still underway, and even though it looks like it's going to be delayed to some extent, we don't know how much yet, it has gone out, and the last time I heard, close to half of all Tompkins County residents had replied to the census. So I just want to put the word out that we should still be doing that. Everyone should have received something in the mail, maybe even 2 mailings already. That tells you how to respond, and more mailings will be coming. So it's important to do the census because we don't know how this economic recovery is going to happen or what it's going to look like, but I can tell you that one small piece of it important piece of it is that we know how many people are in Tompkins County, because that's how future funding from the state and federal government is based on population. So there is one small but real thing that every resident of the town and the county can do right now, which is to respond to the census. The very last thing I wanted to say is just my basic message from the beginning, which is if you're looking for the most up-to-date, best informed information about anything that's going on, my recommendation is to check the Tompkins County Health Department's website. It's updated daily. And for those people that do not have internet access, the best thing to do is to call 211 to ask your questions and get up-to-date information that way. And that's my report. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Dan. That's great. Questions for Dan? I just want to say I agree with you about the great job that the county's been doing, and that it's been after each week's call that they do with local elected officials. They send out a summary of the information, follow up with additional information and resources, and that's been amazing and really, really super helpful. So that's great.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Great. Very good, Dan. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I will move to the first item of business, and that's introduction of the local law providing for a moratorium on actions subject to site plan or subdivision review for a period of 180 days. That was posted with the meeting. So now we have formulated this local law, and the purpose I will summarize as allowing for the town to complete its comprehensive plan, which is indeed imminent. And our planning board chair provided us a timeline, a realistic timeline that looks like they're projecting that the plan will be completed within the next 6 months. And this would allow us to evaluate the recommendations of the comprehensive plan in order to guide any developments in a way that is consistent with the vision that's presented by the comprehensive plan. So clearly we have become aware of the proposed Dollar General at Landon and 79, and that was a wake-up call. And with the impending completion of the comprehensive plan, I feel that it's our due diligence to put a moratorium in place, which is not a prohibition. It's a pause that allows completion of the plan so that we can proceed in a responsible manner. So that's the rationale of this local law. And so now that we've presented it to the public, and it's been presented formally at this meeting, I would now propose to set a public hearing on that to allow the public to provide their feedback on this moratorium law. So my suggestion is that we would hold the public hearing at the May business meeting. And let's see. That would be Wednesday, May 13th. So I will open discussion with the board for their thoughts.
Mark?
Yeah, John?
I think if we're going to consider a law and have a public hearing, I think delaying it a month is not good. I think it should be sooner than that, because there are obviously someone's business interests in the mix with this, and I don't think it's ethical for us to hold it a month. I would propose that we move sooner than that if we choose to go in this direction.
We could do that. I did consult with Guy about this, and he thought it was prudent to hold it at the May business meeting. It's not an undue delay, and it allows the public time to consider the matter carefully, gather information, think about it. But I'm open to other ideas or suggestions. He felt like that was a perfectly reasonable plan, would be to hold the public hearing at the next business meeting.
Mark, I was thinking at the agenda meeting rather than the business meeting, and then at the business meeting we could potentially, just as we typically do, conduct business at the business meeting. We could have a vote at the business meeting, but hold the public hearing before that. And if there were modifications that we felt were in order as a result of the comments, we could potentially, I think, do you know what I forget, is it 5 days? What's the timeline between when you notify the public and when you can have a public hearing?
I think it's 5 days.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So we would, I believe, have time. We work very quickly after the public hearing to at the agenda meeting to then be able to quick modify if we needed to, and then have a vote, or redo a public hearing. I guess actually we'd need to redo a public hearing if we modify.
If we modify it, yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we could do that on the 13th.
I actually think that makes a stronger case for going for 2 weeks, so that there would
Yeah.
actually be time to do research and anything that might be necessary.
Yeah, you're right, John. As I talked it through, I started realizing the same thing.
John,
So,
can you just clarify what you meant? You mean 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from today.
Or the week after this next one. If it were Thursday, that'd be fine too, but right, yes.
So
The last
so
week of April.
Yeah, so roughly 2 weeks from today is the 29th.
I would be inclined to agree with that.
Yeah. I think you're right, especially as I talked through the if we make modifications. So everybody gonna be home Wednesday night, 29th?
It's not May 1st yet.
Believe it or not, I still have my standing commitment, but I will forego it for this. I think this is really, really critical. And so,
Well, we could look at another night, John. We could look at the 28th.
yeah,
Right.
What about Thursday night?
that'd be fine too. Yeah.
I would prefer not Thursday.
What would you prefer?
Tuesday or Wednesday. Only because I've got a long, 6-hour conference call on Thursday. I'll be brain dead.
Yikes.
Tuesday,
Tuesday would be fine too for me.
For me, it's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, whatever.
I actually,
Mark, is that okay with you?
I have a meeting that night that I hate to. We could probably change it. Yeah, I can make that work, I guess. But so that, yeah.
So are we saying 7 p.m. on Tuesday, the 28th of April? Is that what I'm hearing?
Does that work for everybody else? Yes.
Works for me.
Okay.
Yep.
Works for me.
Okay, I'll adjust my meeting for that.
Thanks.
So that's less than 2 weeks, a little bit.
Yeah, 1 day less.
Yeah. So we will announce the public hearing for the 28th at 7 p.m. by Zoom conference.
Yep, sounds good.
Marking it now.
Great. And the other thing that I want to mention to everyone who's listening is that you can submit comments at any time that you may wish to submit. Just emailing the town. The best way to do it is probably emailing the clerk, just clerk@townofcaroline.org, or you can email all of us or whatever you'd like. So yeah, that's a good way to formulate if you want to make sure you have your thoughts composed and well recorded with us. That's great. Okay. Any other thoughts or questions relating to the draft moratorium? Great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. All right. Next business item is I will offer a resolution recertifying the town of Caroline as a living wage employer.
I'll second that.
Great. Seconded by John. And here's our certification sent by the Workers Center. The living wage rate it's reset every 2 years. So Without health insurance, it's set at $15.37 an hour. Our hourly rate is slightly higher than that because we applied a cost of living adjustment at the first of the year. So I think ours is $15.71 an hour, something like that. But anyway, we qualify. And so I would like to adopt this resolution and submit our certification. So any other questions or discussion?
No.
Great. Ready for a vote?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, board members.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. All right. So the next item on the agenda was the review of the Greater Compton County Municipal Health Consortium, the municipal cooperative agreement that I shared with you before. And I don't know if you had time to look that over. If you didn't, you can still submit comments. I do want to get back reply to Elin Dowd about it. And I shared with you before when I initially sent out the material, there was a list of questions. I think they were all submitted by the town of Ulysses about addressing different issues. That was informative, and each of those issues was there was a response from the board. So some of them were accommodated, others the board had a different position on it. One of them was about the management of reserve funds, and so the town of Ulysses was suggesting of putting a cap on reserve funds, and the board of the consortium was advocating that the board of directors, or determining if the board of directors should have authority over that in their budgeting process in order to manage funds, which
absolutely.
So I did ask our attorney to look it over, and he has, and he said he felt like all of the important questions had been asked and answered. So that's, I myself don't have any additional comments or concerns about it. Another item was about instituting term limits for officers. And so I thought that was interesting, but basically the consortium was saying, well, we have trouble getting people for these volunteer positions. And when somebody's doing a good job, we don't really want to saddle them or limit them with a term limit. So
having sat on that board for 5 years, everything you just said is way true, and I think that would be ill-advised.
Yeah. All right. If there are no other comments, or if you have them later, send them to me. But I'm gonna reply to Elin affirmatively that we are fine with the cooperative agreement. So.
Do you know when they're voting on it or whatever? So
I think they said July.
Okay. So we still have further time to think and consider it and get back if there are questions. Okay.
But I think they do want to.
This was just to put it on our desk and get us thinking. I get it.
Yeah, I think they want to. I need to correct that. I think that's their final time for adoption. They wanted our answers in March. So okay. she said they're still accepting comment, but we shouldn't belabor it. So yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Great. And then I suggested that we look over the Association of Towns review of the New York State budget. And so I will open discussion of that if you had a chance to look it over.
I did look briefly at this, and I guess, you know, the thing that stuck out for me is, and Bobby, this, you know, is something that, you know, weighs more for you than the rest of us in some ways, but is the CHIPS reimbursement and you know, just the note that this could change. You know, what they're appropriating now may not really be what they end up having to spend. And so I don't know how you plan to work with that, with, you know, with identifying the projects that you want to do and timing for getting them done and reimbursement. I don't know how you manage that. And I don't know if the highway superintendents are talking about that, or if you have any thoughts, but I, you know, I really did wonder, what do we do with that, knowing that, you know, well, they sort of say they have money, but as we know, the state is getting hit very hard financially from the impacts of the pandemic. So
yeah, I have talked to Nick Ensign at the county. We were actually just talking about this yesterday. Basically, the way he was taking it, and everybody's kind of on this little 2-week waiting period to see what happens. Basically, it has to go from one account to a DOT account. And once the CHIPS money hits the DOT account, it's a locked-in deal.
Oh, good. Okay.
And then we can all proceed, you know, after that. We're all just kind of sitting back waiting to see what happens.
Okay. You know when that's going to happen?
Nick told me within the next week or two we should have an answer, hopefully.
Oh, wow.
But as far as my plans, we had planned to finish Buffalo Road. So we're gonna, at this point, we're just gonna go through with our plans. We have a lot of work to do before we even get to the paving part. So, and if for some reason, you know, the money falls out, the work is done and it'll be ready for next year if, you know, money comes in next year or whenever that happens to be. The work that we're looking at doing isn't going to hurt Buffalo Road by any means. So it's in desperate need of the work that we're going to do ahead of the CHIPS money. So hopefully we'll get that answer here pretty quick.
Great.
Keep us posted, because that's a biggie.
It did sound like some things that would be affected would be the winter recovery money. Bridge New York, and some Pave New York stuff. I guess that's a little bit easier money to get your. Basically, it's a little bit easier for the governor to get his hands on that money rather than CHIPS money.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see what happens, but I'll keep you posted as soon as I hear something.
Okay. Thanks, Bobby. Yeah, the other fund like that is the aid to municipalities, the AIM funds. They're flat, and they're also subject to that same issue of that the state could, if they need them, they could or take them back. So yeah, that's it.
When did that happen last year? Was it in the summer when they were talking about cutting them so radically, or was that already in the spring? Do you remember?
I do. I remember that there was a big discussion about that last year. Yep.
Because they were going to basically X out a lot of it, remember? And then I don't think that was resolved until like July, is my recollection.
Yeah. So I noticed in the list that the AOT made was there's a provision banning styrofoam containers and packaging peanuts. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Next time Bobby has an auction, he's going to have to figure out a different way to ship his stuff.
Yeah, the good part is they have to come pick it up at the auction, so I don't have to deal with it at all.
You're not putting that stuff in packaging peanuts, are you, Bobby?
No, no.
Great. All right. Well, I'm going to move on from that item. I don't have any transfers tonight. And so I will offer a resolution to approve the abstracts for the A fund, for the general fund, in the amount of $15,397.59. And before we go through all that, John reviewed the bills and observed a number of cases where we needed documentations. These were things that, standing payments, but it was really good, so I appreciated that. So all of those are now documented. We've got the papers in there, so we can keep that moving forward. So that was helpful.
Do they have two? They have two signatures at this point.
I think that let's see.
Some of them are missing.
How you came in, yeah. So I think some of them still need attention, need one more signature. So.
Okay. I can try and come in tomorrow and get those.
Okay. It should be pretty quick. They're pretty well organized now, and.
Thanks for getting it done, John and Cal. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Yep. It was more than my turn.
All right, so
just doing it. I was very sad.
Yeah.
I'd say you got to get out more, Tim, but don't do that.
So yeah, so
Mark, can you read me the amount one more time?
Yeah, $15,397.59.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Second.
And I think Tim got the second, and yeah, I think that's it. Everything else was is in order. So with no further ado, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I wonder if we've ever had a bill paying where there was a naysayer, but I don't know.
I don't know.
All right, so I'll offer a resolution to pay the highway fund bills in the amount of $21,972.35.
Second.
Seconded by Irene. Any discussion?
No.
No discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Hey.
First ever. First ever.
Write it down.
And it's highway, nevertheless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll offer a resolution to pay the streetlight fund in the amount of $545.76.
Second it.
Seconded by Cal. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we paid the bills. And let's see, the final thing on the agenda is approval of minutes of April 7th. And I don't know if people had a chance to look them over to their satisfaction, but I did. And I've provided Jessie my comments, and she's incorporated those. So any other feedback for Jessie?
But they're fine.
No, it was great.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Really nice getting them before I'd forgotten what happened.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
the minutes of April 7th are hereby approved. Thank you. And one other small item I'll just mention is I talked to Richard Brooks, and he's our maintenance worker. And so he's going to provide mowing for the town hall. He's going to do our mowing. So
Great.
Do we need
Until we
to buy
take care of
them a
the
lot?
front lawn.
What's
Do
that?
we need to buy?
There isn't much mowing to do, is there?
Yeah,
There it is.
yeah,
It's
there's
growing.
enough.
It's ready to cut.
What about
Is he going to
cemetery?
provide the mower, or do we need to purchase a mower to have?
He's going to provide the mower.
Great.
Well,
We'll pay for the gas.
what of the cemeteries, Mark? Will it still be Scotland Yard or?
Well, Richard said he was willing to do the cemeteries as well. So I thought, I was wondering about touring them, maybe.
That'd be great.
That'd be,
Yeah.
so, so yeah.
Do we have a plan for our front yard lawn? Do we have anybody lined up to rock hound and put some topsoil and seed it?
Well, the first plan that still needs to go out for bid is, and anyway, is the retention pond. So we want to do that, and then I think after that do the rest. There has been a beautification brigade working on the 2 concrete blocks on the corner, I think, but some daffodils appeared and stacked rocks, but anyway.
Is there an opportunity to ask Bobby if they'd be interested in tackling it now that they're not so busy?
Oh, he has it on his to-do list. Yes, he's aware of it. Are you
Sorry, I think you lost everybody for a minute.
Yeah.
If you're referring to I kind of came in at the end of that comment, but you're referring to the concrete blocks at the town hall.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's on the radar to get. Unfortunately, we actually are down a loader as of Monday, so I got to get that fixed before I can get those out of there.
I was questioning Bobby if it's feasible or possible for some of that other work to be done if we rented the appropriate equipment by your guys if they're idled anyway. You know, like the retention pond and the other components.
Yeah, some of it might be. Like I said, as far as equipment, we're kind of out of it. We could look at some rental options, and maybe do some of that. Kind of see how the next, week or so goes.
Great.
Yeah, just a thought, because I imagine we want to anticipate the budget issues, and if that's reasonable, it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Do we have the specs for the retention pond and all of that?
Yes. Yep. We have that. We have
I think it'd be great to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, it would.
Yeah. Bobby and I were talking about it, and I told him I'd send him the plan, so I'll do that, Bob.
Great.
And can I interject sort of a random idea that relates to this? So,
oh wait, don't be so hasty, Irene.
It was, I think we have to give the credit to, I think it was one of the Pitney Bowes service people, and he was chatting with Mark and I months and months ago, and he was asking what was going on in the front, and he had a suggestion that I don't know if it's worth considering, but now's the time, if ever, to create some kind of a community garden in that area as part of the project. So I don't know if it's realistic, if it's feasible, if this is one of the perfect times to do it, like a victory garden. But it was an interesting idea that Mark may recall.
Yeah, good idea.
So I figured I'd shoot that out there in case anyone thinks that has anything.
I'll just say that, yeah, I mean, I don't know. These kind.
Who's going to maintain it?
Right, that's a big question. I think it's a combination of, if you did it, are people interested? And then somehow or other they'd have to be maintaining. I'm guessing like a couple of raised beds or something is what you'd end up doing. Yeah. From our chat with him, something that's manageable, you could mow around it and so on. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean that's a good question, Cal. How do you manage it? Is it, is it positive? Is it negative? I don't know.
I've always wanted to look at a more comprehensive use of that space. we used to have town gatherings there 100 years ago. And I think with some really...
You did?
I did, yeah, personally. I was there. It was great. I didn't tell you I time traveled. I forget things, what can I tell you? But there were some really wonderful gatherings, and there were pictures, if we ever get back to town hall, that we could look at. And I think that could be a really nice space again for community use. And so I would suggest that when we get the retention pond figured out, that we really look at what could we use that space for that would be nice, would represent well, perhaps even multi-use in some ways. It'd be great to have a Labor Day picnic again, or a, end of the summer picnic in a place where people could come and there could be music and whatnot, and just kind of what we used to have.
Mm-hmm.
But you all didn't see it because you don't time travel.
I was there.
Oh, good. I thought I saw you.
Had more hair.
Me too.
So yeah, I mean, this sounds like an idea for a committee,
right?
As much as yeah. So I would. Does that sound like something that we want to undertake, to develop a committee to kind of steward this?
It's kind of in the building and grounds area, isn't it? So yeah, I think we could when we get back to the start to get back to normalcy, whatever that looks like again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows when we'll be able to have a social gathering anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When we have our first new picnic, everybody's got masks. Really hard to eat the hot dogs.
We could build a really, really big screen to have an outdoor Zoom event.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll have a little one-person picnic table 6 feet apart.
That's right. Oh, we digress.
This is, yeah.
I think, yeah. The Victory Garden idea that Brooke brought up and this fellow did mention, I do think that's a neat idea. I know that driving on, let's see, through Lyle, Lyle has like a little town garden there in the center. I've noticed in the last couple of years. It's always really neat to see that in the summer months. So, but yeah, it's a thought. We might want to pursue that a little bit and see. And
one thing that's nice is that we've got a water supply. I know Pat Brell used to try and run a community garden up a little further up on Slaterville Road, out by near Speed Hill Road. She had a community garden behind her house, but watering it was a real challenge because it was out of her well, and just that wasn't always running so well. So anyhow, we certainly have water supply.
Yeah. Great. Great. Well, I am going to dust off the site, the engineered plans for the bioretention and get that moving. So
cool.
Good.
Great.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I guess that's it. Anything else?
Okay. No.
Great. Well, thanks everybody out there in Zoom land who attended our meeting tonight. Wonderful to have you here with us. And we will
Live up to our guest, Dan Klein.
Yes.
Still here.
And so yeah, and we'll be back next time with improved Zoom skills, and hope to see everybody then. So
yeah, and that'll be the public hearing on the 28th.
Yep.
Tuesday the 28th. So great.
Right, sounds good.
All right.
Great.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Motion
Night,
to
everybody.
Be well.
Bye.
Everybody enjoy being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Now
Bye.
at 38. Okay. Bye, folks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Mark.
Hey, Ram.
Yes.
Hi. I just thought I'd hang out for a minute and see what happened.
Well, I was wondering. I said, let me say good night. It was an interesting meeting, and I think the site you're talking about to have a public gathering place depends how many acres it is. They may have some potential for putting some stuff there that will deal with renewable energy, some good green stuff. So we can talk to your green committee, throw out some ideas and see what makes sense.
Okay. So Ram, where are you thinking of? Are you talking about at the town hall or at the
No, one of the comment was somebody remembered having a public gathering, since it must be a large area, some space where picnic, something was done in the past, way past, and then they talked about putting up a drainage pond and stuff. So I'm not sure wherever the historic site is where gatherings used to take place.
He was talking about at the town hall, and we actually, John Anderson, who is, I think he's retired now, was an engineer that did a lot of work with soil and water here. Maybe you know him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he put up, he drew up, he surveyed and drew up some really nice plans for us. So that's for the bioretention area, which Soil and Water has partially funded. So, but yeah, it would be. Were you able to connect with the Energy Independent Caroline or Don?
No, not yet. I would like to send them some stuff and maybe have a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
2 or 3 people. The beauty of this whole thing is, drive 5 hours or 4 hours and have 1 hour meeting.
I know.
I'm saving so many hours. I could just, from wherever I am, give my input and be a volunteer green task member and give ideas and see where it takes.
Yeah.
Because I can see some good infrastructure opportunities coming up once the money comes for doing something to fix our own backyard, our own communities. And it'll be good to be ready when that money comes, and it might be 2, 3, 4 months, whatever. What I can see after this COVID thing is under control and some money has gone out to businesses to keep the employees and all that, that the next big investment in New York State itself and federal would be infrastructure. And you already are thinking climate smart. It will make sense to have a list of, here are the projects we could do if there was some money offered to start and do some economic development, create some jobs. So that's what I'm thinking of. Be ready for it rather than then start planning. So you already have a plan going. One could have few projects lined up sitting we can suggest that if and when that happens.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So I'll connect with them and see where it takes us.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good night. Thanks.
Thanks.
Very much.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Anybody else out there wanting to speak?
Cute. Hi, it's Lucy.
Hi, Lucy.
Are we the only ones left?
Let's see. Jonathan's on.
Jonathan?
It's me, you, and Jonathan. I don't know if Jonathan, I think Jonathan can hear us, but his microphone isn't on.
Okay. I came in late to the meeting.
Yeah.
But, I had troubles, but, and I missed what this part is now. The meeting's over and now you're just saying